Starting recording. Okay. Right. Hi, dudes. We're just starting. Some other people may come, we'll see. But we're just chilling, drinking coffee. So how you been? How's your practice been?
All right.
That's good, man.
Can't ask for more, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fairly simple. That's why I was thinking the other day, I'm like, it can be kind of tedious explaining like Dhamma practice to people. And it's like, I feel like I used to hear teachers say this, and I feel like it's really valuable that, like, if you just trusted the people talking to you about it and just followed their little advice that they give, it would be so much faster and easier, even though it's pretty easy already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it reminds me almost of the Tibetan Bodhisattvas who like have to prolong their enlightenment to like help others. It's like sometimes you just want to be chilling and you're like, yeah, it's like this. It's like this. Well, actually, the Pelicans is this. It's just like sometimes you just are like, don't really know what else you can say to help other people, you know?
Yeah. I think that's it, is like resting, right, with like not needing to help other people, but just like joyfully sharing, right, from that place of abundance, you know, when one realizes the freedom, you know, that the Dhamma provides. That
Yeah, that's true, man. Yeah. You have to make the best of it. Yes. You have to make the best of it. So yeah, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I guess we could just sit in silence until something arises.
Oh, but that's not going to make a very interesting YouTube video now, is no? You don't need to make an interesting YouTube video, but
it's a good point. Well, it would only be good to make it interesting insofar that it would help others.
Precisely.
You know, but I don't know. All my interest is my entertainment capability is a little drained today, so.
Oh, okay.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's all right. No need to be entertaining necessarily, I suppose.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be entertaining enough. It's that's the interesting thing about sharing the Dhamma, because it's like this balance, right? Of like, on one hand, you know, skillfully sharing with others, and on the other hand, just coming from a place of just like, there's absolutely no need to do that, right? To not get so wrapped up in trying to save people and to fix people and to, like, you know, get people places, right? To the point where it's like, oh wow, that's actually causing one to get sucked under themselves, you know? They
True.
go in and drown with it. So
Yes.
yeah, it's like, but that finding that skillful balance is such a play, you know. It's that, like, that's the whole thing. Like the whole path can be such a play. So it can be actually quite entertaining, you know, when one practices. It's just like, wow, just you know, playing with these skills, balancing them out while also not necessarily like needing to, right? It's just like,
Mm.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, those are good points, man.
Yeah. And then, of course, coming back to that core compass, right, of Dukkha Dukkha Nirodha, the Four Noble Truths. At least that's what I find to be so beneficial here, is coming, but like there is an integrity in that, in the Four Noble Truths, in understanding, hey, there's dissatisfaction and there's satisfaction, right? There's the cause, right, which is just wanting stuff, you know, you don't have. And in short, we do this ignorantly, right? Unwise desire, perhaps, is one way of putting it. You know, we're thirsting. And so it's like
True.
seeing that and becoming aware of that and being like, oh, okay, cool. And then through that, you know, we can abandon that. We can change again and again and again. But it becomes, you know, lighter and lighter as we do that. And as we see, right, where it's like just changing the perspective sometimes is like the thing to do, right? It's just changing the way that we're looking. You know, this is like noble right effort, you know. So seeing, oh yeah, everything's changing, okay, cool, no need to hold on to like any sort of thing and any sort of, you know, ground or what have you. And at the same time we come back to, hey, this is okay right now. This is like what I appreciate so much with like the Sangha and the way that Dhammarato, you know, shares the Dhamma, is that still that development of these wholesome, positive qualities of like ease and joy, right? And really like working those in. There's the one, you know, sutta that talks about like, you know, kneading it in, like, you know, with like making dough, right? And this is how you're like kind of kneading in and playing with it. So the practice can be quite playful as we kind of knead in this joyful ease, right? And just work with one wholesome thought after another, just satisfying, you know, the mind. That's gladdening the mind, you know. And it's coming from a place of like truth. It's coming from a place of reality, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's honest, right? Like what's wholesome is honest, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, but it's like honest in a noble way, right? Because it's not just any plain old truth. It's a noble truth. It's a worthwhile truth. You know, and so this is where like that cuts right to the core of it. And what I think is so beautiful, you know, talking about dynamic sort of balancing and playing, you know, and this is something we have such a wonderful opportunity here as practitioners of the Dhamma, and to have, you know, the vast well of resources that we do, right, is that we can skillfully attune this. We can go to the suttas, the original, or you could say like the early like Buddhist texts, and we can be like, wow, there is such a treasure trove here. Like there's a true gem. And then also we can bounce to some of the Zen stuff if we're getting a little bit too fixated on that, right? And we can kind of skillfully weave and work with it, right? And not becoming too dogmatic about necessarily one approach. And in doing so, you know, the practice can just continue to unveil like the potential that is there for one to really live life to the fullest, right? And on all these different like levels, and kind of finding that um balance where one is at, right? And kind of being honest with oneself, right? And like, oh, okay, what is like the skillful sort of way here, right? And for some that might be like going forth and throwing on those robes, you know. And I see some members in our Sangha doing that, you know, like Cathal, and it's like really cool to see them doing that. And then it's cool to see like you, Dhammadasa, where you're like a father and you're just like chilling and talking about this and sharing this, you know, and like living that life and seeing how you can bring that practice, you know, there to ultimately just be happy, right? Like that's really it at the end of the day. We can get so lost in the complexities of things, you know, and trying to explain things rightly, that we can lose really, you know, what's actually important at the end of the day, right? And we can get caught up in all these different things, right? So, and it's just like, hey, no, it's uh, don't worry, be happy, right?
Yes. Yeah, everything is just like a Nietzsche, Dukkha, and Anatta, so it's not worth clinging to. It's not worth getting all wrapped up in Dukkha over, like you were saying.
Yeah. No, that's it. Like that's that change in the way of looking, the changing in the perception. But again, we understand that even this perceptual shift is impersonal, right? So this beautiful, right, noble wisdom, right? We can take it and be like, oh, this is I, me, and mine, this wisdom. And it's like, no, this is wisdom, right? It's impersonal. It's just wisdom, right? And this is liberating and this is freeing, right? And when we don't hold it as like I, me, and mine, when we just see this is wisdom, you know, then it's like, okay, this is it, right? And it's freeing. And that's sort of the thing. Like, on one hand, it's like, okay, living just a happier life. On the other hand, there is a degree of freedom when one really delves into, you know, a Nietzsche, Dukkha, and Anatta, and the understanding of that. Welcome, Ivan.
Really?
And how liberating that is, you know, returning to that. And that's why kind of coming back to like, hey, remember, look, change. Remember, look, everything's changing, right? It's all falling apart. It's all, you know, all these objects, anything that's an object, right, is not worth it. It's actually all garbage, right? And everything is garbage, right? But at the same time, it's all impersonal. And this is when we truly understand this. We really get what Dhammarato is saying when he says everything is okay. And we can understand everything is okay to such a degree where it is just truly freeing and liberating, truly, in all these different situations. So it's worthwhile to practice. It's worthwhile to develop these skills of remembering, looking, changing, of mindfulness, viewing, and effort, running circles around each other, leading to that right noble attitude, that attitude of winner. And this is something that is critical, is that one has this attitude of a winner, right? That they develop this attitude of a winner, like, hey, this is winning, right? Why? Because with that confidence, you know, without this confidence, right, we can kind of get into doubt. We can be like, oh, well, what about this? But when one develops this confidence, right, and recognize, oh, yeah, this is winning, it helps to unify the mind, to bring the mind together, to really see, yeah, we don't need anything. So we're not coming at it from this place of making ourselves a loser. It's not that like we are, you know, a loser, but we make ourselves so. We perceive this. We delude ourselves into thinking we're losers, right? This is it. And perhaps even when some, you know, unskillfully, you know, perceive, oh yes, I'm a winner, but they do so in a way which is um, not quite wholesome or noble, right? You know, they wind up going into arrogance, and they actually are still coming in at from the place of the loser, but from the place of understanding the Dhamma and understanding this is winning, right? Then it's like, okay, no, that's freeing, and it gives that oomph, right, to like be able to see all the because there is dissatisfaction, right, and to see that and to be able to notice any of those obstacles in the mind and be like, yes, they can all be overcome with absolute confidence, you know, just like, yep, whatever obstructs the mind, it can be thrown out, it can be cleared out, it can be seen clearly, and it's all going to fade away, it's all going to pass away, and that's okay. So yeah, if anyone else had any thoughts, Ivan, if you wanted to chime in too.
Yeah, really, I really agree that the confidence in able to remove anything that obstructs the mind. Lately, I think it's also this confidence. But this is not. I'm not sure what I'm saying here because I need to investigate more. But sometimes it's also like, yeah, if this obstructs the mind, that's okay too. It's kind of, I don't know. I want to use the word paradoxical again because, well, because I have a tendency sometimes to be very perfectionist. Well, it's my temperament. It is my personality. I'm not saying that in a sense that I will never change. It's just I'm being aware how I can be that way. So when I always try to, I don't know what I'm saying here. It's like I just have like, well, sometimes I think that's the dukkha right there, right? Sometimes I have a standard because I was always able to throw out certain obstacles in the mind, and then someday when I caught myself unable to, and then I set a standard right there, and then I say like, oh no, what am I doing wrong? I should
Yeah.
be able to point this out, but then it's like suddenly I was also maybe the confidence then is the confidence in having the patience. I think it's the patience in understanding. Yeah, something really takes time. Something for me, really, the dukkha is really sticky. Some of them is the mind is so crazy. I have no idea what's happening sometimes. I think this is where I really like. It's not just the confidence. It's this the faith, I guess, the faith in the path, the faith in the hey, this is okay. Truly, how crazy my mind can be, this is okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I just want to say that out loud that this is something I've been working on lately. It's that patience, and patience. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like interesting too how, with patience, right, is as we continue to develop, right, and we continue to just come back to see, oh yeah, remember, look, see there's change, is that, yeah, with that patience we become more patient too because we recognize the value in that. We recognize the value of like, hey, we can stop doing these things for a little bit, right? So we don't have to follow every single impulse, right? But again, sometimes there can be a play with it, and I think that's what I appreciate too. Dhammadas is you kind of help with that, maybe if someone's becoming a little bit too rigid, right? So again, it's just coming back to this ongoing investigation and looking. And the thing is like really just like investigating, what's this, and again, it's not really question. Again, it's like not coming. The real investigation is one doesn't need an answer. It's when there's no need for an answer. That's when, because that's kind of the needing for an answer is that doubt sometimes, right? It's like, oh, I need to have this answer. This isn't, and so the mind becomes scattered, not unified, not collected enough to be able to see reality clearly as it is, right? And so that's kind of like that practice, right? So it's like bringing the mind together. So can we investigate while also recognizing, hey, we don't need anything. There's no need, right? Coming from this place of no need, and coming from this place of no need is actually the same thing as that confidence, that right noble attitude of the winner who doesn't need anything. They don't need this, that, or the other thing. They don't need any of these temporary objects. Nothing is needed right now, right? And so it's kind of playing with this and understanding that, and everything that does need to happen will happen. It will happen naturally when one understands truly this immediate renunciation, which can of course lead to more physical aspects of renunciation. But when we understand it's in the mind that we truly, there's no need for anything right now, then that can be, again, all the effort that one needs to put in, right? Is just that understanding, just that changing in perspective. Yeah. And so we can investigate from this place of joy. We can investigate from this place of without lack, right? But again, it's also understanding, hey, sometimes, yeah, the mind's going to slip into delusion. That's the way that it is. And all of that's impersonal, right? So as well, so all this process is also, kind of impersonal, and kind of understanding that, right? But then again, not getting so fixed by that perspective. And this is something I've been finding here, where we sometimes completely disregard practical aspects too, right? So again, it's also returning to the practical aspects of living life, as a human being, in this world, right? And kind of that's too where we can kind of like come back and really accept those qualities, right? And see where we're at and be honest with ourselves, right? But we can do that from a place also of the winner, right? Of just being like, yeah, no, we recognize this is winning. Winning is actually impersonal, right? So we can recognize this is winning. Okay, cool. So yeah.
Yeah.
We can recognize that right now. We can recognize this is winning right now. We can recognize that we don't need anything right now. Now we can, right? We can cultivate, we can develop, we can investigate, we can look into, the Four Noble Truths. We can see, oh yes, there is dissatisfaction. And when one is going through all these various different things and we see it, and how wacky the mind can get, how wacky the things can go, right? And this kind of fluctuating sometimes between like the unified mind and then kind of maybe going back when we're going about our lives and kind of seeing back and forth, and we can say, oh, there is dissatisfaction. There is, but also that's impersonal, right? But also, hey, it's like cool. We can say, oh yeah, there's the dissatisfaction, but it's impersonal, and that's chucking it out. Seeing that the dissatisfaction is impersonal is chucking it out. It's throwing it out right then and there. It was never ours. Again, this is what like Bhikkhu Buddhadasa says, right? It's never ours to begin with, right? I'm paraphrasing here, but he talks about throwing it all back to nature, right? We just delude ourselves into thinking it's otherwise. This is the way it's always been. It's just, it's just that delusion that leads to this perspective that there is a little me in here who's suffering, and, is located somewhere, and it's like, nah, it's just these aggregates playing out, right? So, but again, it's like, it's just this practice, right? Again, it's like that investigation, right? It's just like continuing to investigate it, because it is so profound. But again, it's coming back to that simple compass of dukkha dukkha nirodha, coming back to what the goal is, right? And what is that goal? Is the ending of dissatisfaction, or realizing that freedom, from dissatisfaction, right? And in part of that can be like sometimes, again, understanding that dissatisfaction, sometimes, fully, right? But we don't necessarily have to put ourselves in a place where we're like feeling that dissatisfaction, right? Like we don't have to, well, we can, and this is the point of like the practice, right? Is it's like, hey, okay, we're putting ourselves in a vantage point, right? So then we can see these things clearly, right? So rather than being like, okay, I need to drive, the car, right, with the windshield wipers, like not turning on the windshield wipers, though it's like all covered in mud, right? What's going to happen? We're just going to crash the car, right? And so actually applying this right noble practice is just putting that switch on so we wipe off the windshield. But that's really, sometimes when we really understand what right effort is, right? Sometimes that's it. That's what the right effort is. When the mind is clear, it's just, right? So it's easy, it's breezy. Again, this path, this practice, is beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. I totally Agree. I was
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, dude.
Oh no, I was just want to quickly say, yeah, lately over here I have been. I'm not sure. This makes no sense, I guess, but I'm just gonna say it out loud either way. It's just I came to appreciate how I guess I was just repeating what I said earlier on. I came to appreciate how crazy the mind can be, not in a victim way, you know, not in a, you know, I'm not beating myself when I say this.
Yeah.
Truly, I just really accept, like, wow, that the mind is like this. This is
Yeah.
interesting.
Making
Like I
friends
was,
with it. You know, coming,
yeah,
yeah, from non-ill will, like just being able to see, oh yeah, no, this is the way the mind, isn't that interesting? You know, right? Like just that the mind can, you know, can do that. This is reality. Wow, it's interesting, right? Like that this is the way, you know, and that's the thing, yeah, the enthusiasm in the Dhamma and like making friends, right? So this is another way of practicing, like just being friends with that, being friends and understanding that and being light and being nurturing and being gentle, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
but I was also I think this is the funny thing. I guess what I was saying. I also appreciate how dissatisfaction is. You know how this yeah, because I always has been very averse to, well, not in a bad way. Well, maybe it is. I have no idea at this point. But I just really appreciate, well, this dukkha. This is how it is. Like this is crazy. But yeah, I say that with a smile because I was really seeing it for more and
Yeah,
more clearly. But yeah,
exactly.
that's pretty much what I want to say. Yeah.
You yeah, no, that's it, right? Because this is the thing. One's not going to get rid of dukkha via aversion. You know, hatred is not ceased by hatred. It's ceased by non-hatred, right? So that's coming from the Dhammapada, right? That's that aversion, and it's like understanding that. So if we're like we hate dukkha, we hate dukkha, we hate dukkha, you're just binding yourself more and more to that wheel, right? Of birth and death, and so it's seeing that, yeah.
You have to Duke.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing too, is we can kind of come at it from that approach of just like loving it so thoroughly, like loving it, like just like, oh yeah, you know what, yeah, you know what, there's dissatisfaction, but wow, this is so interesting, this is so cool, right? And just like
Yeah.
understanding it, like, and it's like because we can kind of develop this complex of like, you know, we're like afraid or whatever, and it's leading to that aversion, and rather just being able to see it clearly, right? Seeing, oh yeah, you know, that's it, right? So yeah.
I think people have to be, not have to be, but it'd be good for people to learn just to be satisfied by themselves in silence in a room and getting familiar with that, because then once the ball of wax gets going in the mind, it's just sometimes it just feels like such bullshit. Like, why do I have to break my silence? Like, this is such bullshit. Like, it's all bullshit. I don't want to convince anybody of anything. I don't want to even fucking like say something wise or not wise. It just like
It's all
I'm
bullshit.
satisfied and that's it.
Yeah, no, that's it. But it's like it's all bullshit. But hey, it's all okay, right? So we that's like so. But yeah, no, what you said, right, Dhammadasa, is like totally on point. Like just, you know, learning to
Yeah.
be able to be satisfied, you know, in seclusion, like just getting there, and then like that's the thing, is like just like, hey, this is enough, right? This is really enough. Don't need all those things, right? And then if when we kind of go back to like working with it, it's like, okay, having that understanding that, hey, we're not going to find satisfaction in any of these transitory objects, right? They're okay, right? They can be pleasant. It's all like, you know, it's all right, but it ain't this, right? So
Yeah, 'cause just the simplicity of just breathing and relaxing seems to escape a lot of people. Like it's just breathing and relaxing and being satisfied. And it's like how many different ways we can have fun explaining it, you know? And but that's just all it is, you know, breathing and relaxing and being satisfied. And yeah, that's all there is to it.
Yep.
I realized that the Dharma is like a food. I'm not sure why I'm talking about food. Maybe I'm hungry. But it's just like there's so many different textures, but it all comes back to that very simple truth. Like DJ was saying, everything's okay. Like because you can have a very strong spicy one that's like, but yeah, it still comes back to that simple truth. Yeah, I feel like the teaching of the Buddha is like I heard someone said this before, but it's like the teaching of the Buddha is like a buffet. All you can eat. Like there's different, or like there's so many different one, right? But it all comes back to that simple like dukkha nirodha, which is yeah, I really like that saying.
Yeah, that's what it all comes down to. Dukkha dukkha nirodha. Dukkha nirodha.
I was
Yeah.
doing some. Oh, this is it's like 3 a.m. somewhere here. I kind of but before I fall asleep, I was doing some chanting. It's kind of interesting. I was just this different way of getting the mind still. It's like a play. The practice over here has become a play to me. I'm not really. Just different way of experimenting to. Yeah, I don't know. I just really appreciate this.
Yeah.
This practice.
I'm glad to hear. I've noticed that in this practice, there's a benefit to being playful because that is coming from when we get that like that place of you know detachment, right? Like it really can, right? Of just being able to be playful with it. Yeah. And there's like, practicing anapanasati can be quite playful in itself, right? And wow, quite lovely. And then there's like so many wonderful things like, the chanting as well. You notice benefit here too from like sometimes too, I'll just, play some the piano and, be breathing along with that and just, singing sometimes some mantras or just like kind of like wholesome little tunes, just singing the wholesome thoughts out loud. Another thing in terms of play too is not what is it? Humming a tune in your mind that doesn't have words, right? So just like playing with that as like the wholesome thought. Um, and the cool thing with that is again, if one's kind of if doing it in seclusion and they hum the tune in their mind and they're not like, oh, I need to go now get that song. They can be completely satisfied just humming that tune in their mind, right? It's like, okay, this is enough. This is enough right now. And then too, it's like cool. Even with that tune, we can investigate and see, oh yeah, this tune's coming, this tune is going, and we can really see those thoughts. So it's so fun to play. Again, the practice becomes like this beautiful music, and it's like, wow, it's exquisite, So yeah. And kind of getting out of that, you have to practice, this way. And it's like the only way you have to practice is in regard to Dukkha Dukkha Nirodha. You know, that's the only rule that I think is like worthwhile. And again, once you understand Dukkha Dukkha Nirodha, it's going to dissolve all those obstacles, right? It's like that, right? At least that's what I find to be a benefit here, right? And it's just like, okay, cool. That guiding compass, right? And that guide is a compass, it's a tool, right? So that's the beautiful thing. The Dhamma is a tool, right? So that's it.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you to remind us, DJ, about like the Dharma is a tool, because often then it becomes really playful, because it's like you don't really have to bring your whole tool back, get something done. It's just like the wisdom to see, right? The wisdom to discern that, hey, what sort of tool can be helpful right here. I think one thing I really appreciate about Dhammarato sometimes is I have a lot of questions. It's just my old habits, and I realized at some point it's just like be able to trust myself to know, hey, what do I need to, how do I need to practice to get certain things done right now? Just immediately trusting myself. It's really kind of cool. I think the old me would be asking people, "Oh, guys, should I do this chanting? Or do I need to do this? Do I need to do it that way?" But then it's like at some point, just like, "Oh, well, that's dumb, right? That's dumb
Yeah, you
right
don't
there."
need anyone's permission. You don't
Yeah,
need anyone's permission.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting, because rather than waiting for Dhammarato or whoever giving me the green signal, it's just that I was able to see, like, hey, why not test it out for myself? Why not just do it?
Yes.
Why not I just do it first, and I could see the result for myself? So that was really cool.
Yeah,
Because
no, congratulations. Yeah. That's
Dhammarato has been talking a lot about doubt and fear lately in some of his Sangha. I keep thinking about that. It was really cool. It's really cool to be able to see fear, to be able to see doubt, and being friendly with them, and just showing them the door out. Yeah, it's being playful.
yeah,
It
it's
was
like, oh, sorry.
oh no, I was also saying I've been reflecting a lot of some of the skills that I have been doing in my life before I encountered the Dharma, and I realized I had some glimpse into the Dharma even before then, right? I love to, I don't really do it much nowadays, but I love to draw. Back then, I always find it amusing. Why do I love to uh just observe people and sketch them? It doesn't make sense to me back then, but I mean, partly it's because I love to draw, sure, but I realized there's another aspect to it that is kind of interesting. It's like when I'm observing people, I'm not making a judgment. There's no good or bad. There's no ugly or pretty. It's completely just the way it is. Like the mind is like this input mode of not judging, just receiving whatever it is. This is seeing, this is hearing. So I was just thinking about that. It was kind of interesting. But I could say there's a lot of things before then. I had some insight into the Dharma, but I kind of took it for granted or didn't pay attention to that. But yeah, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier on, I was at this very weird place where, not weird, I just find it interesting. It's like, oh, why did I find this dukkha interesting? Like, it's not like I want it. It's not like I want it to stay. It's just, I just really find it fascinating, like how it keeps coming back. Oh, this is how the mind is. And I'm
Yeah.
completely humbled by it. I guess that's, but not in a victim way. It's just like, oh, okay, I see you.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And, you know, I was
Yeah,
I see that here like too, and it's like there can be something that's like very much like um still noticing like, oh yeah, I know there's it comes up and one kind of goes through this and there's like a process, and then it's like, oh yeah, so we just like kind of recognize that and we just continue to develop understanding, right? So it's like, okay, cool, right? But again, not coming from not coming from that attitude of a victim, right? And especially
Yeah.
like, hey, we don't see the value in that, right?
Mm.
And then in a funny way, we can really see the quote unquote shadow with such, joy and all that stuff, like all those uncomfy tendencies or whatever. We can see those and we can be like, oh, okay, cool, right? Hello, darkness, my old friend. That's like, it's kind of funny because, folks will be talking about this in terms of shadow work, that in terms of shadow work, and how does that all relate? And like, it's like, oh, with Dhammarato, it's just like, hello, darkness, my old friend. That's the attitude to have. Because then, if one's coming at it nobly, all those like conditionings and all that stuff can be seen through and what have you in such, I think, an easier way, right? Than if we're like kind of coming at it the opposite way of like, I am a victim and poor me. And again, this is like on the level too of the way we're looking, the way we're viewing. Like, it's just like, okay, no, but this doesn't align with truth. Again, one might have momentary lapses, right, and what have you, where the mind might go into that, but it's like our way of looking changes so that we see, oh, okay, yeah, no, but that's not necessarily the way, it's worthwhile, right? And there isn't a kind of like, there is the way out, right? There is the way out. There, we don't need to be a victim, right? And
Yeah.
again, sometimes when we kind of bring, the world, and sometimes this can be like a thing when we kind of like, if you're like watching the news or something like that, and it's like, again, it's good to get into seclusion, to practice, to develop that winner's attitude. And then when we get out into the world, if we're kind of practicing like that, is to see, oh yeah, because you can see some stuff on the news and be like, oh wow, society, maybe not the world's fine, but society, it's like, oh, it's like whatever's going on with it. There's these wars, there's this thing, and you see, oh no, that's that's samsara, baby. Like, that gives one, motivation to be like, hey, you know what, let's remember, let's look and change, let's appreciate when the body is safe. And Dhammarato is so wonderful at bringing that up, bringing safety there, so we recognize when we are safe, that like, hey, right now, oh my goodness, like here in my room, everything is safe, everything is okay, the body is safe, like it really is like cool right now. And then we can really practice that. And then even when there are times when the body is not safe, we come at this with the attitude of the lion, because we face the mortality, we understand this, where we're like, okay, it's inevitable, this body's gonna fall apart, we're all gonna freaking die on that level, right? This body is gonna fade away, it's gonna decay, it's gonna rot, right? But again, if this is where it's skillful, because if one kind of goes into that practice, right, and they haven't developed the safety, they haven't developed this mind of security, of stability, when they go and tackle, and I've noticed this here in the past, right? This is why when I came to practicing Dhammarato, I'm like, wow, this is really beneficial, because it allows for that unification and clarity of mind when we really recognize and put in that right effort to be like, okay, we are safe right now. This body is safe, right? To just like bring the mind to unify it, and then we can see even more clearly. So when we get out in the world, we're like, okay, cool, I can handle it. I can handle it, right? So that's it.
What were you saying, Ivan?
Dhammarato was really right on when he said that silence is all we need. When I was just thinking of what DJ say about the safety, realizing that the confidence, that safety right here is safe. You're right. Sometimes it's interesting that practice gets so stable where, once you just understand this is silent, it's just very subconsciously you see this as this is safe. Like, you don't even need any words behind that, right? It's just like, yeah, there's no words needed to. But yeah, I just want to say that it's interesting. That's not.
Yeah, it's amazing how in a way, the ego gives people a lot of energy, you know? I mean, they've conquered climbing mountains, they've, do all these things. And it requires a lot of energy. And the ego is good in that regard. It can give us a lot of energy. But the lack of it, sometimes there's no energy.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's like a yin-yang balance.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, you're talking about that. In one case, folks can be like, and it depends on how one conceptualizes or sees or what have you, the ego, right? But we can also come at a place where like folks are like, we got to make an enemy with the ego and have this aversion to it and all. It's like, that's not going to help anything, right? And sometimes too, and in a way, it's like understanding, playing, and Dhammarato says this, and I'm not even necessarily, I don't know, it might not even be pointing to like what one sees the ego to be, but kind of coming from that place of being like, okay, I can handle this, right? So we can use like, okay, yeah, I can handle this. Now we understand that that whole thing is impersonal, but it might be helpful for rousing energy, for rousing confidence, for rousing in a practical way when we come back to, hey, we're also just like people engaging in the world, completely and totally ordinary, but we understand the noble, right? So can we come back to that perspective where we can just be ordinary folks, but engaging with the noble understanding, right? So it's like, can we speak plainly? Again, if one's like, oh yeah, I mean, this isn't quite noble, but if they're like, oh yeah, you know what, I need to talk all the time in this language that is like, there is no me, there is no I, there is just like, that's not going to be practical for communication, wrong sort of thing at the wrong time, right? If you're at the bank or what have you, right? So again, sometimes in that environment, if we're kind of playing around with that, it's just like, hey, I can handle this, I can do this, it's cool. And kind of making friends with that. And also, through that, having that confidence to dissolve it and then just being like, no need to do anything. So that's kind of that kind of dual thing of like, I can, but also no need, right? So no need.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what leads to the silencing and the stopping. It's just like, no need. No need to think I can, no need to not think I can, no need.
Yeah. Well, it was very nice talking with you both. I hear my son, my wife's watching him, so I gotta go tend to him. But thank you so much for your time. DJ, thanks for your wisdom. Ivan, thank you for your wisdom. Much peace and love. Anybody else have anything they want to say before we go?
Oh, just thank you, Dhammadasa. Thank you for coming on and continuing to do these calls. And
Yeah,
thank
you
you for
guys are
practicing. Yeah. And
much
also
peace and
thanks,
love.
Ivan. All right.
I just want to say
Oh,
I really appreciate Dhammada's insight. It's something I keep coming back to from time to time. So yeah, thank you.
You're awesome, dude. Much peace
You're
and
awesome.
love.
Peace.
Much appreciated.
See you,
Bye-bye.
friends.
Yeah.